The fog was thick enough that my headlights barely cut through it, a pale smear on the black asphalt. I hadn't seen another car in hours, and the map on my phone had already given up, blinking no signal like a warning. The air smelled of wet tar and cold rain, and every gust of wind carried the tang of something metallic, sharp, but I couldn't place it. That's when I saw them, the handprints. At first, I thought I was imagining it, the way headlights can smear shapes across the road. But the prints were clear, small, child-sized. They pressed against the asphalt in messy clusters, some streaked sideways as if someone had been dragged, others perfectly splayed, as though the palms had been pressed deliberately. I stopped the car with a shuddering halt, the engine's hum cutting through the silence like a scream. I leaned forward, pressing my hand against the wheel, and the prints seemed to pulse faintly. A trick of light, I told myself. Maybe reflections on the wet road. But then I noticed the impossible ones. Handprints climbing the guardrails, smudged across signs, even on the trunks of the gnarled trees lining the road. Vertical surfaces that should have been unreachable. Some prints overlapped in impossible ways, one set inside another like a nesting doll of fingers, and a single tiny palm appeared on the windshield wiper of my car, dry and sharp against the rain-slick glass. I blinked. The prints shifted. I took a hesitant step out of the car. The fog pressed in, heavy and damp, wrapping around my coat like a suffocating hand. The wind bit at my cheeks, carrying with it an almost imperceptible whisper, or maybe the rustle of leaves. I tried to convince myself it was just the wind, the natural noises of the night. But then I saw it, a print moving. One of the small handprints on the asphalt had left its previous position, sliding toward me, leaving a thin smear of something wet in its wake. My heart stuttered. I scrambled back into the car, locking the doors. The prints were everywhere now, stretching along the road in undulating patterns. Some formed arrows pointing forward, others circled around, returning to where I had started. The asphalt seemed to twist beneath me, subtle but undeniable. I turned the wheel slightly to avoid a puddle, and the puddle wasn't where it should have been. The road stretched, the lines curving. A street sign that I remembered clearly vanished from view, replaced by a concrete wall I didn't recall passing. I floored the accelerator. My tires hissed against the wet asphalt. My headlights flickered as a streetlight overhead shivered and died, leaving me in a pool of darkness. The handprints appeared again, ahead and behind me simultaneously, a grotesque mirror of my own path. I tried to reason it out. Sleep deprivation, hallucinations, but the prints weren't static. They were deliberate, following, waiting. I could almost hear a faint, high-pitched tapping with each pulse they emitted, as if tiny fingers were drumming in anticipation. I glanced into the rearview mirror. The fog behind me shifted unnaturally, clinging to the road like it had weight. I swear I saw shadows moving within it, small forms crouched just beyond the beam of light. When I looked away, they were gone. When I looked back, they were closer. Every turn I made, the fog reformed, the prints appearing at impossible angles, some on the vertical edges of guardrails, some smeared across my own tires as though they had multiplied under my wheels. My mind started to race. What were they trying to show me? Lure me? The prints formed patterns that teased recognition. A smile, a circle, a series of steps. But the logic eluded me. I tried to turn around, but the road twisted, curves I hadn't driven appearing abruptly. Landmarks I remembered vanished or looped back on themselves. The landscape rearranged as I drove, every mile dissolving into the next without sense or memory. The wind whispered again, carrying faint giggles or perhaps sobs. I could no longer tell which. A movement in my peripheral vision made me slam the brakes. One of the prints was at the driver's side door handle. I froze, eyes locked on the smear. It was perfectly positioned for someone to grab it, though the hand that had left it would have been too small to open the door. I dared a glance at the fog beyond. Two pale silhouettes crouched just beyond the tree line, their outlines indistinct. They raised tiny hands, pressing against the mist. And then, impossibly, the prints on the asphalt began to mirror my own movements. I lifted my foot from the brake. They lifted. I swiveled the wheel. The prints curved in synchrony. I swallowed, dry-mouthed. It was as if I were being followed by myself, but smaller, younger, and entirely other. The road ahead seemed to stretch endlessly. I passed a broken streetlight, its bulb flickering weakly. The handprints beneath it were brighter now, wet and glistening. One of them lifted from the asphalt entirely, hovering a few inches above the surface, and then pressed back down with a soft squelch. I wanted to scream, but my throat was tight with panic. I tried to remember anything from the stories I had heard, about disappearing children, ghostly roads, warnings in the fog. Nothing fit. Nothing explained this. And the more I tried to rationalize, the faster the prints seemed to multiply, rearranging themselves, forming new patterns with each breath I took. The road wasn't just haunted. It was alive, aware of me, shaping itself around my fear. I thought about my family, about home, about the idea of a safe space. The thought was a fragile tether, and it snapped immediately when I looked up and saw the road behind me, lined with prints leading straight to me, a corridor of hands rising from the asphalt like a grotesque cathedral. They pulsed with a rhythm that matched my own heartbeat. I could feel their gaze in the fog, the pressure of countless tiny eyes watching, measuring. The mist thinned for a moment, and in that brief window, I glimpsed something truly impossible. A figure at the far end of the road, small, hunched, hands pressed together in front. It lifted its head slowly. I thought I saw my face staring back at me, but distorted, younger, grinning. Then the fog returned, curling around the car like a living thing, and the figure vanished. I kept driving, tires splashing through puddles I didn't remember, headlights barely piercing the opaque night. Each time I looked in the mirrors, the prints multiplied, rearranging, forming impossible mazes. And though I drove as fast as I could, the road twisted in subtle, unnoticeable ways, bringing me back to the same patch of handprints I had first seen, now fresher, more precise, as if they had been waiting for me all along. My phone remained dead. The night remained silent except for the faintest echoes of taps and whispers. The air remained sharp and biting, carrying the scent of wet asphalt and something else. Something sweet and coppery, like old pennies and old blood mingled together. I understood then, in the marrow of my bones, that the prints were not just following me. They were calling me, shaping me, folding the road into a pattern only they could navigate. And I realized that the road wasn't ending. It was waiting. For me. For someone else. Perhaps for all of us. I didn't stop. I didn't turn back. I drove because I could not. And somewhere, beneath the fog and the asphalt, the small hands pressed on, tracing, waiting, pulsing in time with a heartbeat that was not my own. I don't know who or what made them. I only know that the next time I drive that road, I'll see my handprints waiting for me. Small ones, fresh, ready. The GPS had been silent for miles, a blank blue dot drifting across a featureless map. My phone flickered between searching and no service, the little red icon of despair in the corner of the screen. The night pressed against the windshield like a wet sheet. Fog hugged the tree-line, turning the woods into shapeless shadows, and every dip in the road threw the dashboard lights into jittery, staccato flashes. I could hear the tires humming over uneven asphalt, a low, constant vibration that made the car feel alive. Then the GPS spoke. "Rerouting," it said in that clipped, synthetic voice. I frowned, tapping the screen, but the buttons didn't respond. The route reappeared, a thin neon line tracing an unfamiliar path. I leaned closer. The road name glowed faintly, unfinished. I hesitated. There should have been nothing here. Nothing at all. I'd been following the state highway, a straight ribbon of cracked asphalt cutting through the hills, and suddenly this road appeared, jutting off like an afterthought. My instincts screamed to ignore it, to stay on the main road. But the GPS pulsed insistently, and the line flickered, wavered, then solidified again, a heartbeat in electric blue. I turned onto it. The moment the tires left the highway, the air changed. The fog thickened, not in soft layers but in solid swathes, swallowing headlights and mirrors alike. The trees pressed closer, leaning over the road, and the hum of the engine felt different, deeper, almost aware. Uneven pavement jostled the car, though I didn't remember any bumps ahead. The road stretched, warped under the headlights, dips elongating as though gravity itself had grown elastic. My phone buzzed. I froze. The screen lit up with a message I hadn't typed. "You are here." Below it, a pin hovered, trembling like it had weight. Coordinates shifted too fast for comprehension. Latitude, longitude, altitude, they cycled in rapid succession, numbers that made no sense, some negative, some impossibly high. I tried to shake off the panic, telling myself it was a glitch, a combination of fog and dead signal. But the GPS line itself seemed alive, twisting, folding back over itself. Every curve I followed appeared familiar yet wrong, and soon I realized the road had no memory of me. Landmarks vanished as I passed. A rusty sign with peeling paint blinked out of existence mid-glance, leaving the post bare. A guardrail I had passed 30 seconds earlier reappeared, precisely where I remembered it, but now mirrored on the opposite side. The road itself shivered, subtle but undeniable, like asphalt breathing beneath the tires. I gripped the wheel, knuckles white, feeling the road pulse in rhythm with my heartbeat. "Turn left," the GPS whispered. There was no left turn. The road narrowed, edge blending into fog. I blinked and the left turn existed anyway, sharp and unnatural, cutting into shadow. I followed, unwilling but compelled. The dashboard flickered violently, casting quicksilver light across the interior. My reflection caught my eye? Or was it a version of me? Slightly smaller, eyes wider, hands hovering over the wheel instead of gripping it. Every glance in the mirror made me flinch. I felt watched, mirrored, and then erased, like the road was rearranging me into its pattern. I drove. Minutes passed or hours. Time was meaningless here. The GPS now displayed loops, a circular route that spun back into itself endlessly. "Destination unreachable," it stated coldly. "Then you are late." I hadn't scheduled anything, hadn't told anyone I'd be here. My pulse quickened. I tried to ignore the device, shoved it into the cup holder, but the neon line glowed under the fog like a living vein, throbbing, stretching. The scenery warped again. Trees bent in impossible angles, road edges softening and hardening like concrete set in a dream. The hum of the tires shifted pitch, as though vibrating with the air itself. Shadows flickered at the periphery. Not creatures, not animals, just shapes bending reality. Occasionally, I thought I saw small fragments of memory in the fog. An old house I had never visited, a corner of my childhood bedroom, but wrong. Doors where walls should have been, windows that reflected nothing. The road was folding space and memory alike. Another message appeared, almost finished. I swallowed hard. Finished what? The word vibrated in my chest like it had a pulse. I pressed the accelerator instinctively, hoping speed would end this. But speed was meaningless here. Turns I had memorized returned me to the same patch of asphalt, illuminated by my own headlights, slick and wet, but unnaturally perfect. My tires didn't touch any potholes I remembered, and yet I felt every bump. The road was aware of my mind, of my fear, of every instinct I had to escape. Then I saw it, the unfinished portion. A break in the pavement, or what should have been a break, stretched infinitely ahead. No horizon, no vanishing point, just asphalt curving impossibly into fog. And along the edge, small shapes moved. Not human, not entirely, but vaguely so. Figures crouched, walking, reaching, each turning as I drove past, moving just enough to match my speed. I couldn't distinguish them clearly. They were dark, shadowed, but their eyes reflected the neon glow of the GPS line. They were waiting for me, waiting for the road to complete itself. I slammed the brakes. The car skidded, tires tearing a shallow trench into the asphalt, and the fog responded. Swirled, thickened. The GPS blinked in response, flashing a new message. "You belong here." I screamed. My voice was swallowed immediately, muffled by the dense air. I tried to turn around, but the road had no edges. Where I should have seen the highway behind me, there was only more fog, more folding asphalt, more shapes. My reflection in the rearview distorted again. Smaller, older, younger, each version of me gesturing, smiling, beckoning. Couldn't look away. The road pulsed beneath the tires. It wasn't just pavement. It was waiting, breathing, aware. And in that pulse, I felt its hunger. The road wasn't meant to be finished. It wasn't a road at all. It was a doorway, a snare, a memoryscape for the unfinished pieces of those who followed it. I hit the accelerator again, screaming into the fog, into the cold, into the impossible, but the road stretched. I drove. Every turn brought me back. Every landmark vanished and returned slightly altered. And in the neon glow of the GPS, I could see the words forming again, blinking patiently, coldly, unfinished. I realized, with a sinking certainty, that it wasn't a warning. It was a statement, promise, and the road would not let me finish. I drove on,